What's up everyone, Soldier First Class here, and today's mission we're going to discuss the road to Final Fantasy VII Remake Game 2, featuring one of my best friends, FishFriedCat.
Say hello. The script said say hello, but okay. Hello.
Thanks for joining me, man. I'm always glad to have you on.
Oh man, I never thought I'd be back here. Big fan of your channel. You know, I love it when you say let's go on to next mission. Every time I go to your streams, you're just always like, thanks, buddy. Love you. See you at the next mission. Oh, I get so giddy when you say that.
By the way, guys, if you're interested in checking out FishFriedCat's channel, he makes great and hilarious content on just about anything, but mostly JRPGs. So do me a favor and check out his channel using the link in the description below. Today, we're going to be going over some things we'd like to see in Part 2, maybe some crazy predictions, and characters and moments we're excited to see. So, we've played Game 1, we're really excited for Game 2. What are your quick general thoughts about Part 1?
Okay, yeah, Part 1. Overall, other than, you know, the obvious ending, which even now I'm kind of coming to terms with it now, but I'm starting to understand it a little bit more, where they want to go. I think it's a Nomura game, so, you know, scratch that. I don't understand, but we'll see where it goes. The first game, I felt, for the most part, very, very faithful recreation of the Midgar section. I wish we could have seen more of the upper plates. The chapter where you go to Jesse's parents' house, and then where you fight Roche. Who knows, maybe when we return to Midgar in the future games. The combat, really loved it. Actually, one of my favorite combats of any game I played. The characters and the music were probably the biggest E++++ things to me. They couldn't have done a more fantastic job with it. I just love everything about it, mostly.
Well, and yeah, I was kind of like, with the characters, I felt like they took each character and they just amplified their best qualities. And for me, like, the music was fantastic. It really set the mood in a lot of places. And overall, I thought the combat was fantastic. I think it's one of the best systems we've had in a long time in Final Fantasy. And, you know, obviously, I have my reserves about the ending. I think a lot of us do. I am trying to come to terms with it. I'm trying to remain positive about it because obviously there's some exciting things. We don't know what's going to be happening in Game 2. And that's kind of where this discussion is going, is what we kind of think or what could possibly happen, just some predictions or what we're excited to see. And one thing that I do want to know is how far do we think Part 2 is going to go? And for me personally, I could see it going to the City of the Ancients, possibly, with the fateful event that happens there. It is kind of hard to gauge because we don't really have any clues as to how far this can go. We've seen a lot of, not really flashbacks, but like future visions of events that are going to happen later in the story. I don't think that's really a good indicator, because if we go by that, then the reunion is like super far into the story, and I just don't see Game 2 encompassing all of that. I know we've talked a little bit in the past about it maybe being Costa del Sol or City of the Ancients, but at this point, I really can't tell you how far I think Part 2 will go, because I don't think Costa del Sol is a good ending, but I guess with the way Part 1 ended, with you on the cliff outside of Midgar, they could do something similar with the boat and Genova and crossing the ocean to the next continent. So I guess maybe Junon and the boat ride over might be the ending boss fight, and then when we land will be like the ending cinematic. What do you think?
Me? Gongaga.
And is there a reason? Is there a reason for that, or just...
No reason, just Twitter memes.
Okay.
Tell me you haven't seen that all over Twitter.
Oh, I have. Trust me, it's hilarious. But false, because he's alive.
Ooh.
Mystery. So, speaking of a character, what playable characters will be added in this game if we only go... And this is kind of hard to answer, too, because obviously, you know, if we only go so far, we may only see certain characters. I'm I know we're gonna get playable Red 13. I don't think we're gonna get Vincent. I mean, if we do, this game's gonna go quite a bit farther than I expect it to. Obviously, that being in Nibelheim, if that's where they're gonna keep Vincent, and even Gold Saucer's on the other side of the continent. So really, it's gonna be hard to gauge. I would say Yuffie is the most likely choice, but what are you thinking?
I would say Yuffie, because you do get her right before you. And there are a forest that you can get Yuffie in right before you go to Junon.
Yeah, you can get Yuffie pretty much any time after the Mithril Mines. So
Yeah, so they have the Mithril Mines. Once you get out of there, then it's the Fort Condor, and between that and Junon is somewhere they have that forest where you can get her. And I think in one of your last videos, you were talking about the new threat mod where she shows up in Calm and steals the party's materia. Heck, they could probably do that for as much as they pay attention to the community stuff.
yeah, see, I legitimately think that could be an option. And if we want to be real here, putting Red 13 and Yuffie as playable characters would kind of soften the blow of not having Vincent or Sid or, well, nobody really cares about xiii, but...
Hey. That is false. I am somebody sometimes.
No, but for real though, I think they might settle for Yuffie and Red 13. Maybe, and this is a hard maybe, xiii. But that's thinking that they're going to go all the way to Gold Saucer at least. So
some actually just hit me. So technically for part 1, you have 3 active characters at all times. It never lets you have the full party of 4. So I'm even curious how that's going to play out when we get a bigger party. But so the Ultimania, it confirmed Zack is alive. Whether we like it or not, I personally think, and sorry if I'm getting too ahead, but I personally think if they're going to make him alive, at least give us the relationship that I wanted to see with him, and more of him in Cloud and Crisis Core, because that was actually a good part of the game. But so with all that said, Zack, even though I don't know how he'd play, maybe like another Cloud, I don't know. But if you have Zack, Yuffie, and Red, that's 3 characters they give you in the next game. And then the following game, since Gold Saucer and Rocket Town and Nibelheim's all the way on the other side of that boat ride, then you get your last 3 characters there.
See, that's actually a good point about Zack too, because there's another character that we're not thinking about that could be playable, and it's not somebody that I think a lot of people would want to. I don't know if they're going to do it though, and if they keep the Calm flashback intact, could we play as Sephiroth?
See, I thought you were going to say Johnny.
No, definitely not Johnny.
You sure?
Can you imagine his moveset though?
Dude,
you couldn't have Tifa in the party. Yeah, you literally could not have Tifa in the party, or it'd be like he just would not do anything. Sephiroth, though, I mean, that's something that they could possibly choose to explore. I mean, you know, he wasn't playable in the original, but with this expanded possible Calm flashback, it does bring the question. He's got a full materia set. He's obviously got a move set. And I think that'd be a really good way to start part 2, would be that flashback and having that be the tutorial.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if they're going to make him playable, since assuming we just have that one Calm flashback, I'm not sure if they would put a full moveset. But if he is playable, that'd be very interesting, because that might mean they might focus more on his past before, you know, that faithful moment in the basement where he finds out everything.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question, because like with Red 13, they didn't have a full move set for him. They did have some moves, but he wasn't a playable character in part 1. So it does make me wonder, like you said, would they create a full moveset just for that part? And it doesn't really, you're right, it doesn't really, I don't know if the work to put into that would be a good payoff for the developers themselves. So I'm going to lean towards probably not, but unless they plan on making like more segments with past Sephiroth than they did in the original, then I could see maybe that playing out. But obviously we wouldn't have any progression with him. We wouldn't have like a skill tree like we did with the others. So I'm leaning towards probably not playable in that instance.
Yeah, but in that case, I still hope we get more past moments with him, because I think Crisis Core kind of touched upon that a little, but I don't feel that it, personally, I don't feel it's what I was looking for. So, and with the way the remake has been writing the new the characters, who knows? I may come to love Sephiroth even more by the end of it.
Well, and we also got to think too, with them adding Crisis Core locations and possible events, I actually really want to get a good look at Sephiroth in the Wutai War. I feel like the war with Wutai is like a really big deal to this universe. Obviously, Shinra is setting up the possibility of a second war with Wutai, and it really... This is one thing that I've always wanted from Sephiroth, and I've always wanted if they ever decided to revisit Final Fantasy VII, was the mystery behind Sephiroth's claims to victory and his lore and his story and the legend of Sephiroth. We always heard about it, and it's always been like this mysterious thing, and since they're going to expand on these characters, I feel like nothing is unexpandable, I guess, in a sense, because you could technically say, well, if this character's backstory is going to be expanded like Jesse's was, could we see main characters and major characters like Sephiroth getting that background other than just what we know from the research and stuff that we've done and the things that we were told in the original game about him and Genova and Professor Gast and Hojo? You know, could we get those exploits in the Wutai War?
You know, that's actually a really good point, because in the first game, I don't think we saw what the Promised Land looked like at all, right?
No, not at all.
And then in the remake, they just hit you with that simulation and the whole Neo Midgar thing. They showed us stuff that I didn't even think about seeing. So who knows? We might see why exactly Sephiroth was the big hero. I'd rather them show the events, not just tell us. Because you're right, I never really thought about that. They never showed him at all. Where, and sorry for this, but if you take something like My Hero Academia, they show you why All Might was such as the number one hero, why he was so well respected. So I think they should absolutely do that with Sephiroth.
Well, and the thing is too, I mean, we never, in the original game in Crisis Core, we did see like the more human side of Sephiroth, but it really was such a small amount that I never really felt satisfied with knowing that this character was fighting for reasons that he thought was maybe just, or even just fighting because he liked to fight. But I don't feel like we ever got that emotional, like, why is this guy going insane? How bad is his fall from grace? Because we know he's like this legendary hero, but we never saw those exploits, so seeing his descent into madness was cool, but I feel like a character is more... I am more invested in a character if I know them as the human being side of them, and then I see them descend into madness. Whereas in the original game, it felt like, yeah, we have this war hero, yeah, he's this really great fighter, he's a great warrior, and people look up to him, and then all of a sudden he's the villain. And while I love the original game and I love what it presented in the way that Sephiroth came about, knowing his motivations as a soldier, as a person, I think would make us see that this character really is a tragic villain in the sense of the word because of his backstory and what he went through.
Yeah, so have you hearing you talk about that reminded me, have you ever played the Metal Gear Solid series?
A little bit.
So, do you know about Big Boss at least?
Not really.
So he was kind of one of the main villains of Metal Gear Solid, but when Metal Gear Solid 3 came out, you actually got to play as him and then see where everything started to go wrong. And spoilers for Metal Gear Solid 3, but at the end of the game, you find out that his mentor, the boss, she was a double agent or whatever for the United States, but she kind of took the fall because everything went public. They sent the Big Boss out to kill her to prevent like a whole war. I think it was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And his whole big turning moment where he went from American hero to screw everything was whenever they just threw the boss under the bus like that and had him kill her. And they had this really good scene where he was in the president's office and everybody was saluting him for being a hero. President holds out his hand and big boss just turns away and walks out. Like he just gave the president a cold shoulder and then turned his back on America ever since. So I'm thinking if we could see something like that with Sephiroth, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think those kind of turns I think they always make a character more believable and more, these events really affected them. So I think that would be cool too. Now, when we talk about playable characters, I have a feeling, and obviously we may not get Vincent in this next part, but talking about Vincent actually got me thinking about his playstyle, Yuffie's playstyle, and some of the other characters we could play with. And you touched on Zack, obviously, being somewhat similar to Cloud. So I feel like we'd kind of be stepping into Cloud's shoes by playing as Zack. So his playstyle is not so much something that I would be, I don't think it'd be much different. But we've got Vincent, who is, instead of having a gun arm, he has a gun himself. And we know from Advent Children that he was very agile, very all over the battlefield if he wanted to be. Almost like he teleported to an extent. I think it's just maybe his speed, but I could see him playing like a Bayonetta Dante from Devil May Cry mixture.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Like maybe a slower Bayonetta, but not like, I don't know, it's hard to explain because I don't think they're going to do anything with like phasing or anything like that like they did with 15 or even, some of the Advent Children stuff, but I do think that his speed around the battlefield is going to be a huge thing. And then there's his transformations, because obviously in the original we didn't get to control him, and I don't know if that's going to continue to be a thing in the remake. Like, is it going to be like an instant berserk status? Or, I don't know, it's something that I'm not too sure about, honestly, with Vincent.
Yeah, I imagine he'll at least have a balance between ranged and melee. Because doesn't he kick or use his claw or whatever in Dirge of Cerberus?
I think he might.
Yeah, so I think you're right about whether he might play like Bayo or Dante, and that would be a really cool play style, actually. I'm sure he won't play exactly like them, obviously, but hell, depending on how fun he is, I may just start rooting for a Dirge of Cerberus remake. Just because, not that I care about the story, I just really want a cool action game with Vincent to have some justice to it.
Yeah, I totally agree, because like, it's funny because when I went back and when I played Dirge of Cerberus the first time, I thought it was like the greatest thing ever. I loved Vincent, I loved his character, I loved his transformations. So playing as Vincent for an entire game seemed like the greatest thing in the world to me. And now I go back and I look at it and I'm like, why did I ever like this game? Like, and I'm not saying that's no disrespect to anybody that likes the game. I just personally, it has not aged well for me personally.
Yeah, I think a game like that might have been done way before we were ready for a game like that. Because I think now if they were to do it, it would at the very least be a good game, I'm sure. Story, I personally love when they get really dumb. So I might love the story if I did give it another shot, but I think we got that game way too early, and then I really wouldn't mind a compilation remake if they don't try to mesh everything perfectly within this one title.
Yeah, because obviously they've got issues doing that even with Gact, so it's I feel like Final Fantasy, the compilation, is in kind of a rough place because there's legal issues behind the scenes that are keeping things from happening. So I think it's kind of good. I think it's really good that they're incorporating what they can into the remake, because that kind of gives people that played those games back in the day and are fans of those games, it gives those people that opportunity to get some of the things that they wanted from the compilation in the remake. So I think it is good representation. But I do agree that I think Dirge of Cerberus was a little bit, not really ahead of its time, I guess, maybe. maybe it is. Maybe the right way to say that is ahead of its time, because it was a game that probably would have done better had it been on PS3 or even PS4. As it stands, I don't think it's aged well even as a PS2 game.
Yeah, I think they could have used some more seasoned developers for that one.
Now, I do want to say that now that we're talking all this nostalgia, if this game, so Yoshinori Kitase came out with a statement saying in the Ultimania that this game these series of games are going to follow the original story. It may not be in the exact order that we think it's going to be, or it's not going to play out the exact way we think it's going to, but he has promised that this game and this series will play out the way Final Fantasy VII has always played out. If he is telling the truth, what events are we most excited for? Now, I personally have one specific event in mind, but I do want to know what you think specifically.
Oh, I have a few, and I'm sure we could agree on. I could probably take a guess what your one is, but I could be wrong, and I would say probably the Barrett dying moment.
No, actually, but it is, I think, equally impactful to the story, if not more impactful to the story. But I am looking forward to Dyne and Barrett, just because of John Eric Bentley.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job with Barrett. I'll say that. Hi, John. I know you're listening. Hi, buddy.
Yeah, so that scene, where it's the aftermath of the plate, and Barrett thinks everyone is dead. He thinks the entirety of Sector 7 is dead. He thinks Marlene is gone. That moment where he is punching the debris, and him and Tifa share that hug, that embrace, that moment. I'm not gonna lie to you. That game almost made a grown man cry. John's performance and Britt Baron and Cody Christian in that moment, that was pure emotion. It was pure what these characters are going through. And I honestly have to say thank you to those guys for doing such an amazing job.
Oh, dude, there actually were parts, and that was one of them that did actually make me cry. I had ideas of how that scene would play out when it finally happened, but I did not imagine it being that great.
Yeah, it was insanely good. I was sitting there and I'm watching it and I'm like, John is killing it right now. Like, I feel this character.
Yeah, and the my favorite part about John's voice acting was the fact that he can go from Barrett, please shut up, I'm begging you, mainly during the Sector 5 parts and stuff like that. But like with the plate dropping and everything, or anytime he's with Marlene, those are the times where I just go, shit, I think Barrett's one of my favorite characters now. Oh.
Yeah, and that's why I think the Dyne scene is going to be so great, because John's a father, and you can hear that in his voice work when he's dealing with Marlene. So imagine a scene where the main focus is him talking to Marlene's actual father and interacting with him about Marlene and trying to get Dyne to see that his life isn't over. And John's energy with that part is going to be insanely good, and I honestly cannot wait for it.
Yeah, and not only that, but with how amazing the game's battle dialogue has been, I can't even imagine how that whole section will play out.
Yeah, that the battle interaction alone, like those two just going back and forth, and obviously I think it's going to be a one-on-one fight, and I honestly believe that the battle chatter is going to be insanely emotional, and it's like having this fast-paced battle with that insanely emotional moment. I think I just cannot wait for it.
Yeah, and there's another part in particular, but that's not going to be till way past Game 2, I'm sure, unless they change the events where things happen. But Yuffie's whole arc in Wutai, whenever she's battling up the tower and it eventually leads to the final fight with her dad, like that was one of my favorite parts within that first game. Just the whole Wutai section in general, just because Don Corneo made a comeback. And then you got to see the Turks when they're off duty and they don't really care. Like it shows you that they're really committed to their job, but only when they're on the clock, pretty much.
Yeah, I do love the dynamic of the Turks, and I think that's going to make Wutai really interesting. But I also agree with Wutai because I feel like we're not going to see that the same Wutai we saw in the original, because it doesn't seem like, from the atmosphere of the way they've set that up, that it's going to be like the tourist attraction that it was in the original. Because if you notice, like in the dialogue with the president, with Heidegger, they make it sound like Wutai is this powerful force still, and not just relegated to a vacation spot. So if that's the case, then we might be seeing a whole new Wutai that we never thought possible, and possibly something closer to Crisis Core style Wutai, where it was more still a base of operations for Avalanche. It was the site, obviously, of the Wutai War, the last few battles anyway. And I really think that it might still be a tourist attraction, and and the president and Heidegger are kind of playing on people's fears inside of Midgar, or it's actually still this superpower, and I'm excited to see how that plays out as well.
Yeah, and I still think, despite all that, they'll probably have some time to throw in the whole one-on-one where Yuffie's fighting up that tower, because I mean that was from what I can remember, that was a kind of big character moment for us. So I can't imagine them taking away like that.
It was kind of that. It's not really a coming of age moment, but it's more of like a passing the torch from Godo to Yuffie, as in like, you're my daughter. You're very gifted as a ninja. Go out and save the world, kind of thing. Whereas that used to be Godo's role during the war.
Yeah, which real quick, there was something when I was reading the On the Way to a Smile novel, where Yuffie goes back to Wutai, and then she expects to be treated like a hero, and Godo just kind of keeps brushing it off, and then she gets really mad and finally pulls him aside and asks, why is nobody acknowledging her feats? It's they had a really interesting perspective where the end of the world, the whole meteor thing, was still blamed on Avalanche, and he didn't want his daughter to be associated with people who almost ended the world.
Wow, I actually did not know that. I haven't read that novel yet, and I know I need to, but
surprisingly really good. It made me want to go watch Advent Children, but I don't have the complete edition. But I think had we had that novel when Advent Children first came out, we would have had so much context to it, and I probably would have enjoyed that movie even more. Which I enjoyed the movie when it first came out. Now it's just kind of, I'm mad about it, but I never watched complete edition.
Yeah, I feel you. I actually just recently bought the complete edition, and it's decent. I think context would have made it better. I think you're right. Actually, so we kind of got off on a tangent there, but really, it was some good moments that I'd given some thought to, but now that we kind of went in depth about it, the one moment I am absolutely ready to see, and it actually covers 3 specific moments that are the exact same moment, but told from 3 different perspectives. And that is the Nibelheim reactor incident. This is my favorite moment in any Final Fantasy VII medium, whether it be Crisis Core, well, not Crisis Core for reasons, but whether it be, the Calm flashback, or the scene at the North Crater, or even in Cloud's Broken Mind, the Nibelheim reactor incident is my single favorite moment in Final Fantasy VII, and that's because of how impactful it is to the entire story of the game. I mean, it is the catalyst for every major thing that happens in the game, because without the Nibelheim reactor incident, Sephiroth does not end up in the North Crater. We don't see Cloud becoming who he is, and the whole fact that he becomes this alternate persona, and him and Tifa have to piece together his memories to become the hero that he was always meant to be. And that's why it's one of my favorite moments, because regardless of how it's looked at, it is one of the most major moments in the entire game, and without it, none of the original game happens.
Yeah, and I really love the teasers they had with Tifa and the reactor, where she gets really mad holding it was her dead father, right?
Yes.
Yeah, holding her dead father and then picking up Sephiroth's sword. And the voice acting during that scene was also mwah.
Like, yeah, it was spot on for sure.
So yeah, now that you mention it, I was thinking about all the side character stuff, not like the biggest part of the whole game. But yeah, but that's well, actually, it might be game two. Who knows? They kind of swapped a whole mess of events around in the first game.
Well, and the thing is too with the com flashback, we're still getting it from the perspective of a unreliable narrator in Cloud, and you know, there's you know what they say about legends. There's always some little bit of truth, and it feels like the Nibelheim reactor incident is one of those legends. Like when you hear it from Cloud's perspective, it's this crazy thing where Sephiroth goes crazy and Cloud has to defend his hometown, but he doesn't really know what happened after he enters Genova's chambers. And it's kind of like, okay, well, you were there. Why don't you remember these things? And it kind of sows the seeds of doubt that the player has with Cloud. Like, who is this guy really? You know, why is he not remembering things he should remember? And why is it like Tifa's acting kind of weird around that subject? So I feel like this is the moment that I'm absolutely cannot wait for, because not only the calm flashback, but what Sephiroth does to mess with Cloud once he gets to where he thinks he's getting the real story. Cloud kind of plays it off like he's probably going to show me some other person that isn't me just to mess with me. And then later you have the realization that it is the person that was there, and Cloud eventually pieces together that memory, figures out who Zack is, and it really, really is a huge place, not only for Cloud's character development, Sephiroth's character development, and Tifa. After that moment where Tifa helps him, clear his mind, it sets themselves up as these characters that have gone through this traumatic experience together, and now their bond is even closer than it was before because they both remember what happened, and they set off to say, hey, we're taking on Sephiroth now. He burned down our hometown. He took everything that we held dear, and now it's time for him to pay for that. So it really, you not only see Sephiroth's descent into madness, but you also see these characters grow, and that's why I'm super excited to see it.
Hearing you talk about that, I realized I'm not ready for any other emotional event to happen in that game, because that's going to hit hard.
Oh, it's going to hit really hard. Unless of course they change certain things, because obviously we've gotten characters that are still alive that weren't before. I don't personally think that that's going to happen. I think they're going to keep it the same. There's no real payoff if they don't, I don't think. So, but yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder how they're going to handle Zack, and if he's like, I'm wondering if we're just going to play that timeline where he's in and just kind of, actually, the more I try to think about it, I don't know how that's going to play off, because the whole Nibelheim reactor thing, and then Cloud not knowing, it just seems weird if they were to right off the bat kind of hit you with Zack. So I imagine maybe he'll show up near the end of the game, and that's when we might get that whole payoff that Zack, what Cloud thought who he was, it was actually Zack the whole time, and then we'll get that photo with Zack, Sephiroth, and Tifa in there.
Yeah, that's what's so weird about this alternate timeline, Zack being alive kind of thing, because it's like, there's some major events that are directly impacted by Zack being alive. So like you said, the picture, and I'm not sure. Like, I know obviously these are separate timelines, so one timeline could just not affect the other, but I feel like if they're going to do that, what's the point of even having timelines? Like, somewhere in this game, these timelines are going to intersect, and it's just, I guess, how are they going to do it, and what is it going to mean for the story going forward when those two intersect?
Yeah, I mean, either way, I am morbidly curious to see how it goes, and for all we know, we might love the new change with how Zack's implemented, and I'm really hoping, fingers crossed, it gives us a chance to just see more of his character and hopefully, fall in love with the character, because I kind of liked him in Crisis Core, but I think with the way Remake's written their characters, I think Zack could be one of my top favorite characters for all I know.
Well, and yeah, and I mean, it's not, I think the problem with the ending situation with Zack is that it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. And once we dove into it, we found that, it's possible that this is an alternate timeline with the stamp thing. And
Hmm.
it's just one of those things where, like, I know why they filmed the ending the way they filmed the ending with Zack, like where, he basically shot for shot, word for word from Crisis Core. Um, I don't necessarily think that the voice actor is bad. I think it might just be the voice direction in that scene. Because
Yeah.
the lines for me just do not fit the overall feel of this remake. And I think once they rein that in, and once part 2 comes around, and we probably will see more of Zack in part 2, I would assume. I mean, I don't think they're going to leave us hanging like that, but I do think that we need to give this new voice actor a shot, because, like I said, it could just be voice direction. Maybe his voice just doesn't fit those lines. So,
Well, I personally thought that aside from the protect your honor as soldier part, I think the other lines, which sound, like a normal person would say, I think he sounded great.
yeah, I think
Uh,
he sounded great in the lines that weren't straight out of Crisis Core.
yeah. Admittedly, was it Rick Gomez?
Yeah, it was Rick
Like,
Gomez.
admittedly, he did kind of deliver the protect your honor as soldier line better, but I don't know. It's hard to say. And then Rick was also one of the few compilation voice actors that I thought actually fit Zack. But I like the new one. I just need to hear more. Just kind of like with Reno, where in that first trailer we got, I wasn't feeling him. But as when I got the game in my hands, I actually loved the new Reno voice actor as well.
Well, and that also brings up a point with Sephiroth, too. Like, a lot of people didn't like his voice in the trailer. And admittedly, I was kind of skeptical about it as well, because I just didn't know how he was going to sound in game. And I think Tyler Hoechlin nailed it in game. And
Hmm.
obviously, trailers, the voice direction is kind of shoddy because it's quickly done. It's thrown together because they're trying to get a trailer done for a specific show. So I understand that when we hear voices in trailers, it's not going to be grade A, number one, their best work. So I always try to wait for the actual game itself before I make a judgment on characters, unless it's like extremely horrible. But no character I found did I think that the voice acting was bad in the remake, the final product. So I'm going to hold out judgment, because I feel like, if I want to be honest, I feel like Zack's part in the ending was more of like a trailer than it was the full effect. So that's why I'm giving Zack like another chance when it comes to part 2. And I'm not instantly going to hate the voice actor or the character itself, because obviously we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how this is going to play out. So while I do have my reserves about the ending, I am cautiously optimistic, and I am excited for part 2.
Yeah, the whole unknown future thing. Like, as somebody who's a huge fan of the original game, it's kind of exciting that we don't know what the hell's going to happen. But at the same time, part of me, some would call it the purist, but at the same time, I'm kind of upset, but I'm also more optimistic about it, because the way they presented part one to us, everything, I loved it. There could be some stuff that I would like to fix on, but that's more gameplay stuff than anything, and it's not even that huge of a deal. But I think after this first game, despite the ending kind of throwing me through that loop, I am very much looking forward to part two, and I kind of just want to keep asking Square, "Hey, is it out yet? Is it out yet?" Kind of like a kid at a car ride. Like,
Yeah, I feel it.
like I have to know if your job was to get new and old fans just foaming at the mouth for new information, and that Ultimania, I I read everything that I could that's been translated so far. I still want to know more, so I'll give that to them. They have me hooked.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that they set out to do with part 1 at the end was get us talking, get us making theories, get us giving feedback, and
Did it work?
yeah, it worked for sure. And I don't want to say that right now the fan base is divided, because it slightly is, but I think maybe, and I don't know about you, but I think maybe if I had known going into this that this was more of a sequel, than it was an actual full-on remake, I think I would probably be more open to the way they're doing it, and specifically the end, because I felt like 98% of the game was what we thought it was going to be, and then it was like that 2% curveball. I don't hate the game. I don't want anybody to think that we hate the game, because we don't. We absolutely loved it. But I think as old school fans that we are, and not saying that we're purist, but I think it's easier if we do say it in a way that leaves it to the fact that we are open to change. We are open to what's possibly going on. I think I personally would be able to live with this way better if I had known.
Yeah, because you and the Night Sky Prince were huge advocates of change for the remake. And I think it's just we were also focused in on the fact that we were getting, when they said they'd add new story bits, we all assumed it wasn't going to be as dramatic as the ending gave us. It was, exactly what we got, like going to Jesse's parents' house and doing all that stuff, which I loved that section. All the new stuff they added in, really loved it. I felt it added to Midgar. Like I said earlier, I just wish the only thing is we had more of a playable upper plate where we can do quests and everything. But I think had we known, like you said, if it was a sequel, we would have been into it from the very start.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, 98% of it was faithful to the original game, and I loved it for that. And I guess they couldn't have told us it was a sequel, I guess, because if they would have, it would kind of ruin the big bombshell change. So I guess in some sense I understand why they did it the way they did it. I guess I personally wish I would have known, but you can't go back, obviously.
Yeah, so I remember even with Metal Gear Solid 2, for all the advertisements they did and everything, they were showing Solid Snake as the character you play as, but whenever the game actually came out, you played as him, but it was only for the prologue of the game, and then the entire rest of the game was just you playing as Raiden, and people hated that for years and years, and then now when people are looking back, they actually really like that subversion. Like, it was I think it was probably the reason why Kojima was considered this big brain genius, that and all the stuff that he touched upon in Metal Gear Solid 2. Like, that was a bold move, and I think Square did a similar bold move. Whether or not we can say it was as smart, who knows? Time will tell, because I think it wasn't until maybe a decade after that game came out that people started coming around to actually loving that game.
Well, the common joke is that it's going to take a decade for Game 2 to come out anyway, so hey, we may love the ending by then.
Hey, that's plenty of time to get used to the new changes.
Okay, so now that we've talked about all that, I do want to ask, what is one improvement on Part 1 that you want to be in Part 2? And I already know mine personally. I think we're going to agree on it, but what's your take on it?
Is it when you fight a boss and they go into a phase change that you lose any limit, ATB, MP, whatever you're trying to cast, you just straight up lose it?
Yes, that is exactly my one improvement. I hated that. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna nail this boss so hard with cross slash. Wait, cutscene, what?
That actually caused me deaths.
Oh man, it is so annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, but all that, and that's my that's my biggest complaint about the whole game, is that, and even at something on like retries for the bosses, you can just get a feel for. But yeah, for first playthroughs, which a lot of people are going to do, I'm not sure how many do second playthroughs. I know I am, and that's very odd for me. But man, that was the biggest pain in my butt.
Well, and the problem is there's no tell for what, like, you have to know almost to the percentage of health.
Yeah,
when that phase is going to start, and then you're like, well, am I close? Do I trigger it? Do I not trigger it? It's like, it's almost making you wait until the phase is over before you use it. And it's like, I really, really wish that either they would give you a tell, or they would at least not make you lose it. Like, they would give it back to you if you accidentally used it during a cutscene.
Yeah. I can understand just completely canceling out your account, your attack, but losing the limit break is the biggest heartbreak if you lose it.
Well, especially since it's so rare even on normal.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, now that we've gone over that and we both agree, what is one prediction or theory that we haven't discussed completely yet that you think might be in the game? I have a big one that I think I've seen the thought that Biggs is alive in Zack's timeline, but honestly, I think he is alive in this one, and I think that Biggs is going to come back as a part of Avalanche Control, and I think that Barrett and Biggs are going to have a reunion of sorts, and I think it's going to be one of those deals where, like, Biggs is now working for Avalanche Control instead of this individual cell, and I'm not going to say that it necessarily be a conflict, but I think at some point Biggs is going to come to the rescue, possibly, in kind of like one of those dramatic video game type of ways, where he's going to bring in, like, the support troops or whatever, whenever Barrett and the party are in, like, a really bad predicament, and they just happen to show up.
Yeah, that's not bad, actually. As for me, I don't really have one. I'm just kind of in the mindset, especially after that ending, just whatever happens, happens. I hope they present it well enough in a manner that just makes me scream yay and clap a lot. If they want to hit us with some surprises, I say bring it on. For me personally, nobody take this the wrong way, but the dumber the better, because that's just the kind of stuff I really love. I will take that over any actual big brain, well thought out theory, whatever that Nomura might have up his sleeve.
You do love Johnny, so it's.
What are you implying?
Well, that's all the time we have for today, folks.
You're not running away. No, I'm coming after you after this.
So anyway, guys, do we have any final thoughts, or I mean, is that just it?
That's it. Go watch my Johnny video. It's
yes,
great.
Go watch FishFriedCat's Johnny video. It is hilarious. So anyway, guys, I just want to say thank you for being on the show today, Fish. I really appreciate it, man. You know, I always love having you on here.
I love being here, my pal, my buddy.
So anyway, guys, thank you for watching, and don't forget to omni-slash that like button. If you would like to see more collaborations with my friend here, FishFriedCat, let me know in the comments section below. Subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell to join the ranks of Soldier today. And for all the latest Final Fantasy VII Remake discussions, content, news, and whatever else we can think of, I'm Soldier First Class, and I'm on to the next mission. Later, guys.
He said the thing.